Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the shop. In this video, we are building this Murphy bed. Here we go. All right, so this video is sponsored by Create-A-Bed. Create-A-Bed makes Murphy bed hardware and kits and all that stuff. You can buy the hardware yourself and make your own custom enclosure like we did here. So we want to show you guys that you can do this and it's not that hard. And their hardware is amazing. This stuff is really high quality and it's really nice and I'm stoked. So let's just get right into this thing and we'll show you how we built it. All right, so we will start out with the instructions. So there's two sets. The first one is for all your components that you're going to need. It gives you detailed cut lists. It labels all your parts. It gives you everything you're going to need, the exact dimensions of all your parts, and it lays them out very nicely. It gives you full scale templates for some of these curve cuts you got to make and for your holes that you need to drill. Very detailed, very easy to follow along. Very impressed starting this project out with these kind of plans. And so I decided to go with cherry for this build. You can build yours out of whatever you like. And I'm starting out with the face panel. So we're doing a custom shaker front on this, which is going to be pretty cool. I kind of designed this part myself, and you can do the same. You can make your face panel however you want. You can just use a flat piece of plywood if you like as well. And so, yeah, we just start breaking down this cherry and getting it ready to be milled. And I gotta say, projects like this are super fun because it's not something we really do often. You guys have been following, you know we build a lot of cabinets, and yes, this is a giant cabinet, but it's different, and so it's fun to mix it up and work on different stuff. And while I was doing that, Rowdy cut the two big panels that we're going to need for this face panel, and then me and him ran them through the router table to put a rabbet on the edge so that it'll fit into the groove of all of our parts. So we got those things ran, just two of them. And then we could finish milling my parts. And I ran everything through the sander now because I'm not going to be able to run it through the sander after I glue this thing up because it is pretty big, this panel. Go through our standard procedure here, just coping we got one center stile and then a top and bottom rail, getting those coped, and then run the groove on the other shaper. All right, and then those parts were ready. And then I moved over to pull out some poplar for the actual bed frame, which doesn't need to be cherry because you're never going to see it. And while I was doing that, Rowdy was getting a coat of Rubio on the panels before we glued them up in the frame. And I am a big fan of Rubio. I really like using that stuff. And so there's my poplar parts. Wasn't going to show you the whole milling process again. It's basically in your cut list, all these parts, and that will make up the bed frame. And then I moved on to breaking down some sheet goods for more parts. We've got the parts for the sides and the case. There's in the instructions, there's a couple parts that must be made out of plywood, and this is because a lot of your hardware and stuff gets mounted to them, and there's holes that go through it and everything, so it's just better to use plywood and not hardwood because it's not going to crack, or it's just more stable. So better for that. So follow the instructions. Whatever parts they tell you to make out of plywood, make them out of plywood.
And there were some parts that we also made out of solid as well. So we get those cut up, and I'm really just trying to go through my list here and just get all my parts cut right in the beginning, and then we'll just have everything ready to go. Break down the rest of that plywood, and then for the side rails on the actual bed, the bottom, down by the bottom, it gets a curved cut. So I'm just cutting out this template, and I'm going to go transfer this onto a piece of MDF and make this curve cut, and then I'll use this as a template to route my pieces. Take it over to the bandsaw, get it close. And then hit it on the little edge sander just to fine tune that cut. Bring it right up to my line there. And then here's my piece. Now these side rails, like I said, these are the two parts that must be made out of plywood. Read the directions. They're very clear on what parts you should make out of plywood. So just do it. Follow them. And you won't run into issues later. So we get those routed, and then these pieces are, you are going to obviously see that curve. So those will get edge banded, so you're not seeing the plywood edge. Started sanding all these parts. At this point, I had all my parts cut, so I'm going to get everything sanded and rubioed before we start assembly. Just be much easier to do it now. All right, and then I could glue up this gigantic panel. And of course, I don't have clamps that long, so I got to use two. Got to get creative. So I get that center style clamped up first. And I could slide my pre-finished panels in there that Rowdy got Rubio on earlier. And Rowdy is over there edge banding those, yeah, there they are, those side rails. The old-fashioned way with the iron. Get that curve nice. And then once that center style was set up, I took the clamps off and glued on the stiles. Same thing. Don't have clamps that long. And of course we got to check it for square, which we were very close. Very, very close. But it's okay, because I was going to cut that down later with the track saw to its final size. And it's nice and square. And then we just went through and got Rubio on all of our parts. And the Rubio really just makes that cherry look really, really nice. Yep. Looking good. And then I did cut that panel down with the track saw. I didn't actually get any shots of that. And then just went through, sanded the whole thing, and then got Rubio on that whole thing. Buffed it out nice. I did let it dry for a while, and then I moved that thing out of my way. Now that panel is 64, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, 64 by 81 3/4, something like that. So it's pretty big. And then here are my poplar pieces for the bed frame. So I'm start assembling this stuff, and these are just getting glued and nailed together, making an L with these. So we're going to have 5 sets of these, and then there's 2 outside border pieces. And then they give you your spacing and everything for all these things. So I already laid them out on those outside pieces. And so I could just nail, and then I do pre-drill and screw these in. Definitely going to want to get screws in there because this is like the structure of the bed frame. So we want it to be solid. And again, in the instructions, this is all laid out very, very clear and easy to follow. And we were just cruising along at this point. Once those were together, I could take my side rails and start laying out for some different holes and hardware that we had to get going on these things. So I'm laying out for a couple holes that I need to drill. One is this is on the back of our side rails, and this is for the pivot hole that the bed will actually pivot on. So you'll see later, all this hardware is really nice. It's thick steel, everything is solid. So this hole, I clamped on a piece of scrap wood on the backside, just so when we drill that hole through, we don't want to tear out. Just gives us a clean cut on both sides. And then this is the lower ball stud plate that is on the back side of our side rails, and this is where our actual pistons, they are gas pistons that open and close the bed, mount to, or it gets connected to. And this is adjustable, so you can adjust for different weight mattresses and all that. And so this gets some through bolts, and then we got some T-nuts that go through the outside, and then those screws go into those. And then the 2 screw holes in the back, we're not doing anything with right now, and in a little bit you'll see what those are for. So we repeat the same steps for the right side, and then we can move to the front. So these holes right here I'm laying out for are for the pivoting legs that are on the front side that hold the mattress in when it's in its upright position, and then when you pull it down, these are the legs that keep the bed frame from going down into the floor. And so those holes did not go all the way through. They were only a 1/2 inch deep, and so that sits in there. And then same thing, clamping a scrap piece of wood on there and drilling some 1/4 inch holes for the T-nuts. And then the top, so those 2 bottom ones get the T-nuts with the screws, and then the top holes get wood screws that go right into that plywood. And then this is again on the back side, and those are the metal pivots. And again, those are what will actually, the bed actually pivots on those. So we get those things screwed in. And then we can get the bed frame put together. So there's obviously the poplar frame that we put together earlier. So then I got my foot rail down there, and this is just going to get screwed from the inside through the poplar. And then we repeat for the headrail. get that screwed in. And then we could move on to attaching the side rails. Now, remember those 2 screw holes that we left empty in that plate? Now you can see we've got some screws going through into our head rails, and that's how these whole things kind of attach. So I pre-drill and screw those together. And I will mention it again that the instructions on this and the set of plans that they give you are really easy to follow, and made this kind of a breeze. Once you get all your parts cut, it's really just going step by step and putting it together. I know sometimes you get directions and plans for stuff and you're kind of on your own and got to figure it out. This was actually pretty nice to just not have to think so much, and you could just follow the directions. They already did all the thinking for you. So we repeat the same thing on the other side. Get that screwed together, get it screwed down to the foot rail, and then we screw the frame from the inside through the poplar into those side rails. All right, now we could get our face panel laid down. Where's Rowdy when you need him? We get that panel laid down, face down, and get ready to put that bed frame on it. And so I lay this down, and then I take a pencil and just kind of trace the whole frame and where all those pieces are onto the back side of the panel, because you're going to want to get some adhesive under there. So because this is all pre-finished, I'm going to use Rue Glue because that will stick. Yellow glue wouldn't stick so great to the Rubio. So we use some Rue Glue, get some adhesive down on this whole thing. And then we'll lay that back down and screw this thing to the panel. Okay, now I can move on to the actual cabinet box sides. So these are the cabinet verticals, the left and right parts. So you're just going to follow the instructions. It gives you a drawing for the left side and the right side, so you don't get confused with having to do things opposite or whatever. They're very clear. And so that is the stopper up at the top for when the bed closes. So right here, I'm just throwing together a quick little jig. I need to route a slot in the sides of these cabinet vertical pieces for the adjustable upper plates, and that is the other end of where our gas pistons connect to. And so they need to go into this slot, and so this is easiest way I could find to do it, and just throw it together with some CA glue, mark out where I need that slot to be, and then clamp my template down and route this thing away. And there you can see a nice clean slot for that piece to squeeze into. And then same thing, this gets holes that go all the way through, so you get the T-nuts through the outside, and then they get screwed on. And then this hole that I'm drilling down here is for the other end of our metal pivot. So that piece there is going to go through the hole that we drilled in our side plates, and that is what the actual bed will pivot on. Same thing, couple T-nuts, and then 2 wood screws. And then I did make another jig. This is the bottom back side of our vertical piece, and this is just routing out a little notch there, so when this goes and gets installed into the house, it'll sit right over the baseboard. And then this is our top piece. I am connecting a couple rails that go across the front and the back. We need to have a 1/2 inch offset, and I'm using regular biscuits because I'm out of Tensos for my other Lamello. If you need a Lamello, hit me up and I'll hook you up with a sales rep. But yeah, so I just used some regular biscuits, yellow glue, and some CA glue to hold it until that yellow glue dries. Get that pressed together. You can see I got my 1/2 inch reveal at the bottom. And then these are just some extra cleats at the top. And this is what is actually going to connect my sides together up at the top. Screw that down. I did use some Rue glue. And then this piece is for the pivoting legs, to connect the pivoting legs. I think I missed this step earlier. Supposed to do it earlier, but doesn't matter. So drill that 1/4 inch hole, 1.5 inches deep, and then these just get threaded on with some big screws that they provide you with. Okay, and now we are on to the other set of instructions. Now this is just for the assembly of the actual bed. So there you can see the adjustable lower plate, and it gives you the settings for your size bed and mattress that you're using. So we follow those settings, get it set up. This is the upper plate, and you can see it has 3 holes there. You look at the sheet, it tells you exactly which one you're going to want to be in for what size bed you're making. And it tells you exactly how to put this together. So I am making some lines there for our headboard, which we're attaching here. And it'll all make sense when we stand this thing up. And so now we can lift up the sides. Being very careful not to drag and ruin that nice front panel we did. And then we can put our header board up, the top, and those cleats that we just attached are what we're screwing through into our side panels, so we don't have any fasteners visible up there on the outside. And then we can get this thing pushed up. Now if you'll notice up at the top, I removed my door stoppers, or bed stoppers in this case, so we could actually push the bed frame through. So you push it past a few inches, and that allows you to get your gas pistons in place. So these just snap on. So we get both of those in, and then we push the bed back out, and then you can reattach your stoppers up there. Okay, so then we slid this thing back, got it pushed up against the bench. I did make some little brackets in the back, and I clamped and screwed this thing to the bench so we could get this all mocked up. Put a couple pieces of plywood in there to go under the mattress. And then bam, we got the mattress. And you can get these mattresses right through Create-A-Bed as well. And I gotta tell you, it's pretty comfortable. Me and Rowdy even debated just mounting this thing against the wall in the shop so that we could just never leave and work and take naps. Not at the same time, of course. You know, we'd have to take turns, but it's a pretty comfy mattress. And that's it. There it is. This thing works very smooth, works really, really nice. Those pistons are, I mean, it's like effortless. And then when they're coming down, it's not like this thing is super heavy. Very easy to use, very nice. And I'm stoked on it. Thank you, Create-A-Bed. This thing turned out awesome.